Welcome back, everybody. My name is Tucker. This is Sporting Logically, and today is the first ever General Manager Monday. This is a weekly series in which I put on my GM cap and go through a couple of different paths I could see one team taking this offseason, similar to what I did with the Toronto Raptors video last week. The difference here is that these won't be in any specific order, as I don't really have a favorite. I just wanted to provide a platform for conversation about a particular team and give some options they could take this summer. This week's featured team is the Utah Jazz. Before I lay out the three paths the Jazz could take, it's important to take a look at a few key parts of their team building strategy that I will continue to come back to throughout the video. There are only 3 players coming off the books for the team in free agency this summer: Derek Favors, Dante Exum, and Raul Neto. Each of these will be key decisions because the Jazz have actually done a great job of managing their salaries and not getting locked into bad long-term deals, in sharp contrast to a lot of other teams around the league. With Ricky Rubio and Alec Burks' deals coming off the books in 2019, the team could have upwards of $50 million in cap space next summer. That's a lot of production to try and re-sign or replace in the next 2 free agency classes, and the team will have to be careful not to overpay any of them in order to maintain the sustainable roster that they have built to this point. Hanging over all of this is the fact that they'll have to have space to sign rookie sensation Donovan Mitchell to a big extension once he's eligible. Obviously, things can change very quickly, and his outstanding rookie season doesn't guarantee anything, but I'm sure the front office is already preparing for the day that they'll have to offer him a near max level extension in a few years. The Jazz have never paid the luxury tax, and as a smaller market team, I doubt they will in the future either, unless they're very clearly in championship contention. So keeping space for a big future deal for their star rookie will be a priority. Lastly, after a better than expected season this past year that ended in the second round of the Western Conference playoffs, the team would like to keep that positive momentum going while maintaining salary flexibility if possible. Making the playoffs next season should be the absolute minimum expectation, so if they do let some of their key free agents walk this summer, they'll need to find replacements either via free agency, the draft, or the trade market. Alright, with the scene now set, let's get started. Option 1. Steady growth. The primary goals in this scenario are to maintain the positive momentum the team built this past season and once again make the playoffs, adding veteran players on cheap deals and not sacrificing much of their 2019 cap space in the process. First, and this will be the case in every scenario, the team would let Derek Favors walk in free agency. It doesn't seem like he wants to come back, which is understandable as he's a valuable player that could likely find a bigger role on a different team, and I doubt the Jazz want to pay him what he's worth anyway. Next is the tricky case of what to do with Dante Exum. I will likely cover him in a Free Agent Friday video at some point, but right now I think he could probably get a 2-year deal at around $7 to $9 million a year on the open market or from the Jazz directly. And in this scenario, I would expect the team to match that offer. That might seem like a lot at first, but it doesn't hinder the team's future plans much and could turn out to be a steal if he ever starts to reach his potential. Also keep in mind that they will have 2 other rotation guards in Alec Burks and Ricky Rubio coming off the books next summer, so locking up Exum will give them more flexibility and leverage in those negotiations should they want to bring them back as well. With Favors gone, Jay Crowder would likely slide into the starting 4 spot alongside Gobert at the 5 and Rubio, Mitchell, and Joe Ingles on the perimeter. That's a playoff caliber starting 5, but they'll need to bring in a few guys to take up the minutes that Favors provided at the 4 and 5 spots. The 2 players I would try and get would be Nemanja Bjelica and Trevor Booker. Bjelica is a better stretch 4 than Jonas Jerebko and can provide the team with much needed spacing from that position. Booker has already played for the Jazz and Quinn Snyder and would likely welcome a reunion as a backup 5-man. Though not a super skilled player, he brings great energy and effort and would be a perfect fit in Utah. The team could probably get each of those guys on 2-year deals at around $4 to $6 million a year. In terms of the draft, the team has the 21st pick, and I would try and target a guard like Villanova's Dante DiVincenzo. Players with high upside that can provide solid two-way impact for the 2019-2020 season should be a priority with a late draft pick, possibly becoming a cheap replacement for Burks and or Rubio in the future. With all of those moves, the team would be over the cap for next season, but not by much. They'll still have over $25 million in cap space in 2019, which would be more than enough to get high impact players if they chose to, or re-sign their own free agents. There don't look to be a ton of max contract level players available on the open market for the Jazz next summer, but a player like Tobias Harris is one they could look to add to bring more versatility on the wing. Going even further into the future, each free agent they sign would come off the books in time for them to sign Mitchell to an extension and not go over the luxury tax threshold. And by the time that kicks in, Ingles and Gobert's deals will have expired as well, and the team will have full flexibility to build around Mitchell however they like. Option 2, 2019 free agency. The priority here is for the Jazz to maintain as much of their 2019 cap space as possible, while also having a secondary goal of making the playoffs once again. As I said previously, the 2019 free agency class isn't likely to be packed with max contract level players that would actually become available. But as we all know, things can change quickly in the NBA, and having nearly $50 million in cap space in any offseason is a huge asset and provides great flexibility. First, the team would let Favors and Neto walk in free agency, while only offering Exum the one-year qualifying offer of under $5 million as a restricted free agent. If he doesn't find much of a market on a multi-year deal, the team would welcome him back on a one-year contract that wouldn't threaten their 2019 cap space. But that seems pretty unlikely at this point, so I'll assume he gets a multi-year deal similar to what he got in option number 1, but in this case the Jazz don't match it and he plays for a different team next season. That leaves the team with a good amount of production to replace at the 4 and 5 spots, as well as a need for depth at the guard position. Here's what I would try and do. First, sign Thaddeus Young to a one-year $12 million contract. That's likely an overpay on an annual basis, but it isn't uncommon to pay a veteran player a premium for a single season in exchange for long-term security. Young gives the team great minutes as a 4-man, either as a starter or off the bench. A high-energy player and a versatile defender, he could actually be a better fit at that spot than Favors has been in his time with the team. Next, sign Brandon Wright to a one-year deal in the $3 to $5 million range. Though he has struggled with injuries, Wright is an extremely productive backup 5-man that provides energy, rebounding, and pretty strong rim protection as well when healthy. Though not a great offensive threat, he's a solid rim roller and finisher at the basket, and if he can't stay on the floor, second-year player Tony Bradley could see some minutes at the backup 5 spot as well. In the draft, I would look to bring in a player that could play rotation minutes right away to fill in for the minutes Exum left behind and be a potential replacement for Burks and or Rubio in 2019. A player I would target would be Aaron Holiday out of UCLA, a quick playmaking guard that would provide a nice offensive spark off the bench. Though a bit on the smaller side at just 6'1", he has a very Darren Collison-like game that would likely translate pretty quickly to the NBA level. He doesn't have great upside in my opinion, but should be a solid rotation guard right from the jump and throughout his career. All these moves give the team a roster that should challenge for playoff contention, all while sacrificing next to no salary cap space for 2019. In the end, flexibility is the name of the game here. You never know what could happen from one offseason to the next, and having this kind of salary versatility is an envious position to be in compared to the rest of the league. It also makes it much easier to improve via trade, as it doesn't necessitate that the team match salaries should they be in position to trade for a star on a big deal. I'm not going to speculate on who that would be, but the number of different paths the team could take from this option make it a very appealing one. Option 3, immediate improvement. Last up is an option that places a priority on capitalizing on the success of this past season by adding high upside players that could raise the ceiling of the team moving forward and provide strong contributions in the short term as well. First, I would let both Favors and Neto walk, and I'll get to Exum in a minute. In free agency, I would sign Kentavious Caldwell-Pope to a 2-year, $22 million deal. KCP likely won't find a $20+ million one-year deal in free agency like he did last season, and bringing in a strong two-way wing to come off the bench is exactly what the Jazz need in their rotation. Next up is the biggest move of the offseason, trading Jonas Jerebko, Tony Bradley, Alec Burks, and the 21st pick in the 2018 draft, or the player selected with it, and a sign and trade for Jabari Parker on a 3-year, $36 million deal. While this isn't really equal value for the player that Parker could become, this is a scenario in which the Bucks and Parker aren't able to come to terms on a contract, and the team tries to get any value out of him they can, which isn't an unlikely scenario in my opinion. The Bucks get spacing in Jerebko and a guy in Burks that could really provide a spark to their guard rotation next year, both on expiring deals in 2019. Bradley should become a solid cheap backup 5-man, and they can find a pretty good contributor with the 21st pick or whoever is selected with it. For the Jazz, they get a player that fills the void at the 4 spot left behind by Favors, but one that could be a much better fit alongside Gobert and provide more perimeter offense as well. This would also move Jay Crowder to the bench, further strengthening their wing depth. Lastly, I would bring back Exum on the 2-year deal I discussed in option number 1. All these moves do cut into their salary cap space for 2019, but they'll still be well under the cap and in position to improve even further in free agency that offseason if they choose, all while not jeopardizing their ability to sign Mitchell to a big extension without threatening the luxury tax threshold. This isn't likely to be a championship contending roster, but if Parker can return to the form he showed prior to his series of injuries, they would be an outstanding second-tier team in the West on both ends of the floor, and an intriguing free agency and or trade destination for stars around the league to pair with Mitchell and the rest of their core. Each of these moves would be riskier than anything else discussed so far, but could also provide the most benefit. In the end, regardless of how the team progresses from here, they're in a fantastic position as a franchise, especially considering that they just lost Gordon Hayward in free agency last offseason. They can really go in any direction they want to and still compete for a playoff spot next season, which makes them one of the more interesting teams in the league moving forward, and is thus the reason that they were the first team featured in the first proper General Manager Monday. As always, if you have a suggestion for another team to cover in future episodes, be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thanks again, and I'll see you all next time.